Welcome to Ball Talk Deep, where we talk deep about ball. You got your host Andrade and Irwin back at it again, and today's episode is going to be special. We're going to focus today on Kobe Bryant because of the recent tragedy news that we got yesterday, as of this recording, with his death and the death of his 13-year-old daughter Gianna Bryant. And yeah, I'm sure like a lot of basketball fans out there and Kobe fans out there, and just sports fans in general, his death probably brought up a lot of thoughts because the guy was very young. It was a very unexpected death.
Yep.
And he had a hugely bright future ahead of him post basketball that could have been as equally fascinating as his basketball career. And yeah, we're just gonna separate this into three parts. We'll start off with our own personal experiences as basketball fans, from like kids to teens to now adulthood, watching the NBA growing up and watching Kobe. We're both 90 kids, so we're 90 babies, so we got to see Kobe's growth and the majority of his basketball career. So that would be the first part. The second part, we'll talk about reflecting on Kobe Bryant's legacy and his influence and impact on the game of basketball and the NBA league and culture in itself. And then the third one, we'll do reflecting back on everything and how we believe the NBA could honor Kobe Bryant's legacy long-term wise, in talking about all these rumors that are going on, from whether he could be the new logo or a special Kobe Day, etc., retiring the numbers. So we'll get into all that and how each one of us feels about it, and like what we think could be a good move. And so we'll start it off with you, Irwin. Just tell us your personal experience, which, by the way, we haven't talked about this before recording, so everything he's about to say will be also my first time hearing it, because we've never actually sat down and talked about Kobe. Like,
it was unexpected.
Yeah, very unexpected.
I mean, to go with Andrade saying, Kobe is arguably one of the best players, to ever play in the NBA.
Facts.
At the end of the day, being from Miami, it's not gonna be as big of a deal, per se, Kobe, as somebody like a Dwayne Wade, for example, because he was in their backyard. But to go, with what your question is, regarding Kobe Bryant.
Oh yeah, all right, so tell us what your personal experience with with Kobe and your tying in with your life and witnessing things.
Personal experience. I know Michael Jordan was the GOAT, but in my, to give my 2 cents, Kobe is my Michael Jordan. Because when Michael Jordan was in his prime, going into his prime in the early 90s, going into the mid 90s, to the time that he retired, for the second time, after beating the Jazz. I'm not gonna count the Wizards. That was kind of sad, seeing Michael Jordan. But that's a different topic. Is we saw the ups and lows of Kobe Bryant. The ups being, when he three-peated for the first time, in the early 2000s, with arguably, the best duo in the NBA, arguably, Shaq and Kobe. But at the same time, uniquely with Kobe Bryant, we saw kind of like, bad times for him. The time that he got accused for, I believe, rape.
Yeah.
The number change. But at the same time, we saw, the rise of Kobe again, like kind of like redemption per se. When Shaq was trying, I'm saying, hey, you can't win a championship without me. And then we saw, when the Lakers acquired Paul Gasol, and they had that little run, I believe in 2009 and 2010, when they won back-to-back championships. But the first couple things that I had with Kobe Bryant is, I thought he was very cocky, very arrogant when he was playing in the NBA.
When you were a kid?
When I was a kid. I really didn't like him too much, to be completely honest with you.
Feels.
But at the same time, I'm very grateful for Kobe Bryant, as being a Miami Heat fan, back in '04, that he pissed off Shaq, if it wasn't for Kobe pissing off Shaq, and pretty much running him out of town, in the Los Angeles, arguably, the Miami Heat wouldn't be able to acquire Shaquille O'Neal back in 2004, 2005 in that blockbuster trade. And Andrade, like, I really wouldn't imagine if the Heat weren't able to get Shaq.
We wouldn't have won that 06 title.
We definitely wouldn't. Yeah, Dwayne Wade, was the one that led that to that championship.
Yeah,
but he had Shaq,
exactly. Veteran presence, leadership, all that.
Molding
him.
And I don't think the Heat would have had that championship caliber pedigree that they would have had. Maybe until LeBron would have showed up in 2010. And if that didn't happen, maybe that wouldn't have not happened.
Exactly, because Shaq proved that a star chose Miami.
Maybe not chose, but he did resign.
Yeah.
And it made it happen. So those were my first couple impressions with Kobe. And obviously, growing up as a kid, every time we get a little paper ball, a little basketball, whenever you're shooting a shot, whether you make it or not, we're gonna yell out Kobe.
Yeah.
Kobe, 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 Kobe. I've been guilty of doing that as well. So that's just a little bit, of I guess my take regarding Kobe on a personal level. How about you, Andrade?
All right, so like similar to you, all right, so I got into basketball around 03 to 05 from what I remember.
Okay.
I didn't get into it too early because like my parents didn't watch basketball, so it took me a while to like learn about it and then start learning about the NBA and all that. And it was around like 03 to 04, 05. And so I missed that whole first three-peat of Kobe. So like I know a lot of people like around our age, a little older, even a little younger, like they'll talk about it. Some witnessed it, like they were watching the games. I didn't, so I have like no memory, no recollection, no like idolization of Kobe Bryant three-peating with Shaq in that Lakers dynasty. But like of course I still respect, especially learning more about it as I got older. So then I was like you actually, that when I did learn about Kobe in the mid 2000s, I didn't like him when I was a kid. Like I thought he was really cocky. I thought he was really a very selfish basketball player. He never passed the ball. Because that, like when I got into the NBA, it was during Kobe's downturn, and this is before like I learned like the history of the NBA as I got older. So like at that time, that's like that was my perspective, just that current present moment. And I still remember not liking him, and I was like, oh, Kobe, I guess he's alright, but he doesn't make his team better. Like, oh, he's too selfish. And on top of that, with the sexual assault case around that time too, like I remember that being talked about, and I wouldn't bring that up, but it left like a distasteful taste in my mouth. And it wasn't until like later on learning the details of it, how the case actually was, as opposed to how the media presented it. But when you're a kid, you don't really aren't aware of that stuff. And so like me with Kobe, it was like that was like the first half of my experience and interpretation of Kobe Bryant. Then there was like this whole second half from like 08, 09 to like now. And it was a complete opposite. And to be honest, in a way, it speaks of Kobe's greatness. Because, like, when someone can change your opinion, it's usually due to, like, how great they are in whatever they do. And that, to me, was Kobe. Like, when I started getting older, I started learning more about basketball and the game itself and the NBA history and culture. That's when we saw the rise of Kobe again, where we saw the two-peat that he had with the Lakers, with Paul Gasol, Ron Artest, that whole squad. And that's when I that's when I remember really like learning about Kobe more and more, and like I started doing a little more research online. I was like, oh, this guy is legit.
Yep.
And the fact that that's when I started learning about like that Mamba mentality and that focus. That's when I was like, yo, this guy is it. Like, he has been able to prove to himself that he could win a championship, and not just to himself, to the world, that he could win a championship without Shaq. And when he did it the first time, I was like, yo, Kobe Bryant's like, he's definitely a top NBA player now. Like, nobody can say anything. Then he did it a second time. And when he did it a second time, that's when I was just like, all right, Kobe for sure is a top, like at the very least top 20, top 15 NBA player of all time.
And it seemed at that time that Kobe was gonna, at least
Continue.
yeah, continue and definitely, match Jordan for his 6 rings and maybe
Yeah,
surpass
because I remember also thinking that you're right, because he had a good amount of time left in the league, especially after his second one in 2010.
Yeah.
And so then that's when I started admiring the guy a lot more. But to be honest, like when I really, really started admiring him was when I started learning about like his mindset and the way his mind worked and interpreted things. Because in a way, I agreed and related to a lot of it. Like he always focused on quality over quantity with whatever he did, and he always focused on putting in the work, the effort, and like the details. Which hence why his ESPN series that he had was called Detail. And like when I started getting older, and especially YouTube helped a lot, watching interviews of him, that's when I started getting more into like other things he did, like his shoes, and watching like how he talked about his shoe models. He would talk about his shoe models the way that I wouldn't say no athlete, but very rarely an athlete would talk about the product that they're giving to people. He didn't sound like an athlete. He sounded like a designer. And when I started learning about Kobe the designer, or Kobe the intellect, that's when I was like that's when I became like a fan of Kobe Bryant. Like I wouldn't say like basketball made me a casual fan, but for me, when I learned about who Kobe Bryant was as a person, as an individual, that's when I became a Kobe Bryant fan. And that's also why this death really, really hurt me, because I started following more than his basketball career. I started really following his post-basketball career after he retired from the NBA. Like 2016 was a great year for all of us, seeing his tour and all that. And then after that, I was just like really curious, like, okay, what is he gonna do next? Like this guy definitely, he was really at peace with retiring for basketball. So that was dangerous. Like the fact that he was like so into this one thing, and he was legitimately able to let it go and move on to other things, basically how we're seeing Dwayne Wade do now. And the reason I bring up Dwayne Wade is because they were compared a lot, especially early on in Dwayne Wade's career, because their playing styles were also pretty similar. And yeah, like he won an Oscar in like less than 2 or 3 years of being retired.
Yeah,
this is crazy. Which, by the way, I saw a tweet earlier today. I'm gonna put up here the thing that he won, the short film that he won an Oscar for, has been uploaded on Vimeo and the website for free for everyone to watch today, starting today, because of
in honor for him,
in honor of Kobe Bryant. So heads up on that. And there's another interview, I'll link it down below. I like tweeted it. That interview to me was so I saw this last year in 2019, where he really talks about his the projects that he had going with making like children books, and like how he, like his focus on product quality was it legit reminded me of Steve Jobs. And anyone that knows me knows I've like studied Steve Jobs a fair amount. So yeah, I know I veered a lot off basketball, but to me that's how I will remember Kobe Bryant. Like it was less Kobe Bryant the basketball player, more Kobe Bryant the individual. And it really hurt me to see him go. Similar feeling I had with Mac Miller when he passed away, I was also a huge fan of. It wasn't just the fact that they passed away. Of course that's gonna make fans sad and stuff, but what also heightened it for me was the fact that these both guys had these, what I believe to be, bright futures ahead of them that we were all gonna witness as a world. Mac with the future music he was gonna release after Circles, Kobe Bryant with anything that he was gonna touch and release to the world after his NBA career. You feel me?
It's way too young at 41.
Yeah, way too young. Like 41 isn't even like, okay, that's a lifetime, but like, bro, but that's, most adults are getting into like their adult life in their 40s. You feel me? Like that's when they really start getting into like things that they really like or want to get into. And this guy was legit getting into that, because he literally retired 4 years ago, not even, like a little less than 4 years ago,
something like
from
that,
basketball. And
seems like yesterday.
Yeah, and yeah, really. and then this year was gonna be the year that he was gonna get enshrined into the Hall of Fame. I mean, that was like unquestionable gonna happen. First ballot Hall of Famer for a fact. And then I saw a lot of tweets, people talking about like now we're never gonna get to hear
that speech,
Kobe's speech. Yeah, and that speech was definitely gonna be special. And yeah, that's just yeah. I'll just, before I get too much into the ranting, that was my personal experience, and I'm sure I've seen other basketball YouTubers upload their own experience, and it's been nice to see, and also stars and people that had relationships with the guy, like see their personal experiences with him, and all of them have been positive.
Actually, one thing I do want to bring up, I actually saw this on IG. One of the sons of Shaquille O'Neal, Sharif O'Neal.
Oh yes.
He was actually bringing this up to go with this is literally, you know, his last conversation with Kobe Bryant
was that crazy.
Morning. That really kind of hit like a note.
Yeah.
Kind of tug at my heartstrings a little bit. That, you know,
asking him how he's doing.
Asking how he was doing. Like showing like the thread. You know, that he had surgery.
Yeah.
And, you know,
imagine if Sharif had responded right after.
Being there for emotional support. And mind you, I mean, that kind of speaks volumes.
Who he is as a person.
Who he is as a person that's close to him, per se. Because at the end of the day, yes, you know, Shaq and Kobe were you know, teammates, you know, friends through the good and bad. You know, that wasn't his son.
Yeah, you know, and on top of that, he's a father of 4, he's got a whole life. Like
exactly.
most adults or fathers, like people with families, aren't just texting randomly. Their nieces or nephews. You know, how you doing, fam? Like
exactly, just something
checking
simple
up
like
on
that.
you.
Hey, check it up on you, and then like, you know, hey, look, I'm gonna go on surgery. All right, you know, I'm gonna check up on you in a couple weeks to see how you're doing. If you need anything,
and you can see in the thread that he posted, like it wasn't like they were having a convo. He just DM'd them after like months, like
just
hey, how, like, yeah, him reaching out exactly.
So I go with that, you know, to end the you know what we were saying. That caught my attention, and I didn't even know about that. You know,
what do you mean you didn't know about that?
That, you know, Shaq's sons, you know, they had a relationship with Kobe like that.
Oh, I feel you. Same. Yeah, because, you know, you're always focused on, like, Shaq and Kobe, but, like, that truly showed how close those two ended up being once they got over their whole beef thing. Like, their kids were, like, Shaq was uncle to Kobe's kids, and Kobe was uncle to Shaq's kids. And I'm glad, at least, with everything being done, that they ended everything with peace, and you could see it when Shaq did his tribute. I'm glad at least that duo, like, everything was ended on a positive note. You feel me?
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's our personal experience. There's a bunch of 90 kids that you'll hear, you know, and 2000 kids talk about theirs. Luka talked about, oh no, he would talk about LeBron a lot too. But Trae Young was one of the ones that had a very deep experience with Kobe, so that was insane. And yeah, so